Okay, take a moment and just think about the sheer scale of life on our planet. It's almost impossible to wrap your head around, really. From like frozen mountain peaks down to the deepest ocean trenches,
Mhm.
life is just thriving everywhere.
It is pretty staggering.
Yeah, and you see, I don't know, a horse thundering across a field, or you watch those incredible journeys of migrating birds. It really does fill you with this sense of awe, a deep wonder.
Absolutely. That's a very natural response to the living world.
Yeah,
And it definitely sparks some really fundamental questions in us.
for sure. And maybe the most basic one is, what exactly is life? Now, that might sound simple, but it actually opens up a couple of different paths, doesn't it? It
Hmm.
does. There's the scientific, almost technical side, like what makes something living different from non-living stuff?
Right. The biological definition.
And then there's the more, well, philosophical angle, pondering the purpose or meaning of it all.
And for our deep dive today, we're really focusing squarely on that first one, the technical question. How do we even begin to make sense of this staggering variety of living things?
Exactly. Because when you think that there are around, what, 1.7 to 1.8 million known species?
And counting. They find new ones all the time.
Right. It can feel, well, a bit overwhelming. So our goal today is to sort of unpack the fundamental principles biologists use to bring some order to all this amazing diversity.
Think of it as a shortcut, maybe, for you listening. A way to understand how scientists actually go about identifying, naming, and crucially, classifying all this life.
Yeah, we're going to explore these core ideas. Biological classification, nomenclature, that's the fancy word for the naming system,
The naming rules.
and taxonomy, which is the science behind how we classify everything.
Basically, how do we build a system that lets us navigate this huge, intricate web of living organisms? That's what we're digging into.
Okay, so let's jump in. It wasn't always this systematic, was it? I mean, early humans must have had their own ways of understanding the plants and animals around them.
Oh, definitely. That's a really important point. Early understanding was, well, it was largely driven by immediate needs. What's safe to eat? What's dangerous? What can we use for shelter?
Practical stuff, survival.
Exactly. There was often a more anthropocentric view, meaning humans saw the world mainly in relation to themselves.
Right. How does this affect me?
Pretty much. And while those early observations were absolutely crucial for survival, they didn't really offer a broad, systematic way of seeing how different life forms were, connected.
So it's more like, this is food, this is a predator, not really seeing the bigger picture, the interconnectedness.
Precisely. The shift towards a more systematic approach really came out of necessity, the need for accurate identification.
So you know what you're actually dealing with.
Yes, and a common language, a way to name organisms that everyone, everywhere could agree on, plus a logical way to organize them. And what's really fascinating is that these detailed studies, over time, they led to this profound realization.
The big one, the game changer. Understanding that all living things actually share a common ancestry.
Exactly that. The recognition that every living organism today is related, not just to each other, but to everything that has ever lived on Earth.
Wow.
And as our sources mention, this was a huge revelation. It really, it humbled humanity's view of its place in the grand scheme of things.
I can imagine.
And it even helped spur cultural movements pushing for the conservation of biodiversity.
That makes total sense. Once you grasp that shared history, you start seeing the whole tapestry of life as something incredibly precious, right?
Absolutely. So this need for order, this desire to understand the connections, that led directly to developing nomenclature.
The naming system, what was the main problem it was trying to solve?
The biggest issue was just confusion. Local names for the exact same plant or animal could be completely different from one place to another.
Right. Like, imagine trying to talk about a specific bird with someone from the next valley over, and you both call it something totally different.
Exactly. Scientific communication becomes almost impossible. It's like trying to follow a recipe where everyone calls the same ingredient by a different name. Chaos.
Yeah. Okay.
So nomenclature is basically the process of standardizing the naming of organisms worldwide. But, and this is key, it relies on two things happening first.
Okay, what are those?
You need an accurate description of the organism, and you need correct identification. You have to be absolutely sure what you're looking at before you can give it that universal name.
Makes sense. You can't name it if you don't know what it is.
Precisely. And to make sure this is all consistent and, accepted globally, we have these international codes.
Ah, yes, like the ICBN, that's the International Code for Botanical Nomenclature for Plants,
Mm-hmm.
and the ICZN, the International Code of Zoological Nomenclature For animals.
Exactly. These codes lay out all the rules and the guidelines for how scientific names are assigned.
And the main goal for having these scientific names is?
Well, fundamentally, it's to have one single unique name for every organism. Just one.
Okay.
So that no matter where you are in the world, if you use that scientific name, everyone knows exactly which species you mean.
No ambiguity.
None. Plus, it makes sure that the same name isn't accidentally used for two totally different organisms. Clarity and precision, that's the aim.
Got it. And this brings us to a really important figure in all this. Carolus Linnaeus.
Ah, Linnaeus, yes. The father of modern taxonomy, some call him.
He came up with the binomial nomenclature system, didn't he? Tell us about that.
He did. Linnaeus introduced this elegant two-part naming system, binomial, bi meaning two, which is still the standard today. It's remarkably simple but incredibly effective.
Okay.
So each scientific name has two parts. The first part is the genus name that tells you the broader group the organism belongs to.
Like a family name almost.
Sort of, yeah.
Illegal.
Luke's group. And the second part is the specific epithet, which identifies the particular species within that genus.
Okay, so let's use the mango example they give. Mangifera indica.
Perfect. Mangifera is the genus.
Right.
And indica is the specific epithet, telling us it's the Indian mango species within the Mangifera genus.
Got it. Genus and species. And there are specific rules for writing these names too, aren't there?
Yes, there are. Key things to remember. Generally, the names come from Latin, and they're always written in italics.
Okay, italics. Or underline if you're writing by hand.
Exactly. Underline if handwritten. The genus name, the first word, always starts with a capital letter.
Capital Mangifera.
Correct. But the specific epithet, the second word, starts with a lowercase letter.
Lowercase indica.
That's it. And often you'll see an abbreviation after the name, like Mangifera indica Lin.
Lin for Linnaeus.
Exactly. That indicates the author, the person who first formally described that species according to the rules.
Okay, that's clear. So we've got a standard way to name things. But with, nearly 2 million species, just naming them isn't quite enough to really get a handle on them, is it? That's where classification comes in.
Absolutely. Naming is crucial, but you need a system to organize them. Why is classification so vital?
Well, I guess trying to study millions of individual species without any organization, it would just be impossible, right?
Utterly impossible. Classification is the process of grouping these organisms into convenient categories. And these categories are based on shared, observable characteristics. It's about bringing order to what could otherwise be just overwhelming complexity.
Like organizing a massive library. You group books by subject or author so you can actually find things and study them.
That's a great analogy. And our source material uses familiar examples too, like plants, animals, dogs, cats, insects.
Right. When you hear dog, you instantly picture certain features distinct from a cat.
Exactly. And we can get even more specific, like German Shepherd, where the shared characteristics within that group are even more tightly defined.
Okay.
Now, the scientific term we use for any of these categories, it doesn't matter what level of organization, is taxon. Plural is taxa.
Taxon. So plants is a taxon.
Yes.
And wheat is also a taxon, but they're at different levels in the system.
Precisely. Animals, mammals, golden retrievers, they're all taxa, just representing increasingly specific groups.
Got it. And the science behind deciding how to make these groups, defining these taxa based on characteristics, that's taxonomy.
You've got it. Classification is the grouping. Taxonomy is the science, the process that determines how those groupings are made based on characteristics.
Okay, so what does modern taxonomy actually look at when classifying organisms, not just surface appearances, right?
No, definitely not. Modern taxonomy is much more comprehensive. It considers a whole range of things. Yes, external structure, what it looks like, but also internal anatomy.
What's inside?
Right, and the structure of its cells, how the organism develops from an embryo, its developmental process,
Okay.
and even ecological information. Where does it live? How does it interact with its environment? All of that provides clues.
So it's a much deeper look than just, it has wings or it has fur.
Absolutely. And the basic steps, the fundamental processes in taxonomy are usually, first, characterization noting the key features.
Like, this insect has 6 legs.
Perfect example. Then comes identification, figuring out which known organism it matches based on those features.
Okay.
Then classification, placing it into the right groups, the right taxa based on those shared characteristics. And finally, nomenclature, giving it that unique scientific name we talked about.
Characterization, identification, classification, nomenclature. Got it.
Interestingly, those very early attempts at classification were often based on much simpler criteria.
Like how people use them. for food or clothing.
Exactly. Food, clothing, shelter, really practical uses. It was basic, sure, but it shows this long-standing human need to try and understand and categorize the living world.
Right. Now, this leads us to another term, systematics. How is that different from taxonomy? They sound kind of similar.
They are related, but there's a key difference. The source material mentions that systematics focuses more on the relationships between organisms.
Okay, relationships. And it says the word comes from the Latin systema, meaning systematic arrangement. Linnaeus even called his big work Systema Naturae.
That's right. Initially, systematics did cover much of the same ground as taxonomy identification, naming, classification. But the crucial difference that evolved is that systematics explicitly takes into account the evolutionary relationships between organisms.
Ah, okay. So taxonomy is more about grouping by shared features now,
Largely, yes, based on current characteristics.
whereas systematics tries to incorporate the evolutionary history, the ancestry, how they're connected over time.
Precisely. Systematics aims to build, essentially, a family tree for all of life. It asks, how are these groups related through evolution?
That seems really important for a truly meaningful classification.
It is. Understanding those evolutionary links is vital for creating a system that reflects biological reality more accurately. And all these ideas, classification, taxonomy, systematics, they come together in what we call the taxonomic categories, which form a hierarchy.
A hierarchy, like a pyramid structure or levels.
Exactly like levels. It's a series of nested groups where each level represents a rank or category. And all these categories arranged in order, from specific to general. That's the taxonomic hierarchy.
And each individual category level, like genus or family or order,
Yeah.
is a taxon.
Perfect. Each rank is a taxonomic category, and the group of organisms placed at that rank is a taxon. Think about insects again. They all share that feature of having 3 pairs of jointed legs. That allows us to group them together in a distinct category, the class Insecta, which sits at a specific rank within the overall hierarchy. These categories aren't just arbitrary boxes, they reflect real biological relationships.
Okay. And the standard sequence of these main categories going from the most specific upward, say if I remember, species,
Yep, the base level.
then genus, family, order, class. Then it's phylum for animals or division for plants.
That's right. Different terms there.
And finally, kingdom at the very top.
That's the standard sequence. Species, genus, family, order, class, phylum, division, kingdom. And it's really important, as you said, that species is the fundamental unit, the lowest, most specific category for both plants and animals.
Right. Let's maybe unpack these levels a bit more, starting at the bottom with species. How do biologists actually define what makes a species?
Well, our sources define a species as a group of individual organisms that share fundamental similarities. They look alike in key ways, what we call morphological characteristics.
Their form and structure.
Exactly. And they can be distinguished from other closely related species by these distinct differences. Examples given are Mangifera indica, mango, Solanum tuberosum, potato, and Panthera leo, lion. That second name, indica, tuberosum, leo, that's the specific epithet identifying the unique species within its genus.
Okay. And then a genus is a collection of these closely related species. They share more in common with each other than they do with species in different genera.
Exactly right. It's an aggregate of closely related species. Take the genus Solanum. It includes the potato, Solanum tuberosum, but also the eggplant, or brinjal, Solanum melongena, and nightshade, Solanum nigrum. They're distinct species, but they clearly share more similarities with each other than, say, with a petunia.
Makes sense.
Similarly, the genus Panthera includes the lion, Panthera leo, the leopard, P. pardus, and the tiger, P. tigris. They share many features that set them apart as a group from, for example, the genus Felis, which includes domestic cats.
Okay, so if species group into a genus, what's the next step up? Family.
Family is next. A family is a group of related genera. Now, the similarities here are fewer compared to those within a genus or species.
Getting broader.
Exactly. In plants, families are often characterized by both vegetative features, leaves, stems, roots, and reproductive features like flowers and fruits. A good example is the family Solanaceae, which includes the genera Solanum, potato, eggplant, petunia, and datura. And in animals, think about the big cats and small cats. The genus Panthera, lion, tiger, etc., and the genus Felis, domestic cat, are grouped together in the family Felidae.
The cat family.
Right, which is distinct from the dog family, Canidae, which includes genera like Canis, dogs, wolves. Cats and dogs share some general features as mammals, but they belong to different families based on more specific shared traits.
Got it. Felidae and Canidae. Then above family, we have order.
Order, yes. This is an assemblage of related families. Again, the number of similar characters generally decreases as you go up. Families are grouped into an order based on having certain characteristics in common, but fewer than you'd find linking genera within a family.
Okay. Examples.
Well, for plants, families like Convolvulaceae, morning glory family, and Solanaceae, potato family, are put together in the order Polymoniales, mainly based on similarities in their floral characteristics.
Flower structure.
Yes. And for animals, the order Carnivora includes families like Felidae, cats, and Canidae dogs. They share characteristics related to being carnivores.
Okay, Carnivora includes the cat family and the dog family. Next up is class.
Class includes related orders. So, for example, the order Primata that includes monkeys, apes, and humans.
Us.
Yes. That order is placed in the class Mammalia, along with the order Carnivora, cats, dogs, and other orders like Rodentia, rodents, and Cetacea, whales. They all share those key mammalian traits.
Like having hair or fur, mammary glands.
Exactly. Those define the class Mammalia.
And then above class, we get to phylum for animals, or division for plants.
Right. These are even higher categories, grouping related classes together. A major example is the phylum Chordata in animals.
Chordata. What groups are in there?
It includes classes like fishes, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and mammals. Hugely diverse animals. But they are all united by having certain fundamental features, at least at some stage in their development, like having a notochord.
That sort of primitive spinal cord structure.
Essentially, yes. And a dorsal hollow nerve cord. Those core features link all these seemingly different classes into the phylum Chordata. And in plants, related classes are grouped into a division, like Angiospermae for flowering plants.
Okay, and finally, right at the very top, we reach kingdom.
The highest, broadest category. Traditionally, we talk about kingdom Animalia, which includes all the animal phyla we just discussed.
Everything from insects to mammals.
Yes. And kingdom Plantae, which includes all the plant divisions. These are the two massive umbrellas covering vast swaths of life.
Wow. Okay, that hierarchy makes more sense now. Going step by step. The source material even gives that helpful table 1.1, laying it out for specific examples.
Yes, seeing it mapped out is useful.
For us humans, species Sapiens, genus Homo, family Hominidae, order Primata, class Mammalia, phylum Chordata.
Right. And for the common housefly. Species Domestica, genus Musca, family Musidae, order Diptera, class Insecta, phylum Arthropoda. Very different lineage.
Totally different. Then for plants, mango, species Indica, genus Mangifera, family Anacardiaceae, order Sapindales, class Dicotyledona, division Angiospermae.
Dicot flowering plant.
And wheat, species Aestivum, genus Triticum, family Poaceae, the grass family. Order Poes, class Monocotyledonae, division Angiospermae.
Another flowering plant, but a monocot this time. Seeing those examples really highlights how everything fits into this nested system.
It really does. And a key takeaway, something our sources emphasize, is about the number of shared characteristics at each level.
Ah, yes, that inverse relationship.
Right. As you go up the hierarchy, from species towards kingdom, the organisms within each taxon share fewer characteristics in common.
Exactly. Species members share the most similarities. Genera share many, but fewer than species. Families share fewer still, and so on.
So the lower the taxon, the more characteristics a members share. Makes sense, they're more closely related.
Precisely.
Right.
And the higher you go, the more general the shared features become, and frankly, the harder it can sometimes be to pin down the exact relationships or define the group solely on easily observable characters. You're dealing with much broader connections.
Okay, so let's quickly recap our journey today. We've talked about why we even need biological classification, basically, to handle the sheer, mind-boggling diversity of life.
Bringing order to complexity.
We looked at nomenclature, the naming system, especially Linnaeus's binomial system, genus and species. Elegant stuff.
Very elegant, and still fundamental.
And we unpacked that whole hierarchical system of taxonomic categories, climbing the ladder from species all the way up to kingdom.
Understanding how life is organized, from the most specific unit to the broadest groups.
And this isn't just, an academic exercise, is it? Understanding taxonomy has real-world importance.
Oh, absolutely. Our sources point this out clearly. Taxonomic studies are crucial for fields like agriculture, knowing crop species, pests, diseases. Forestry depends on it. Various industries use biological resources. And fundamentally, it's essential for understanding our planet's bioresources and the incredible biodiversity we rely on. Having this universal system helps us study, manage, and hopefully conserve that diversity. It gives us a common language.
It really does provide a framework for making sense of it all. Gives you a new perspective, actually.
It does.
Now, thinking about everything we've covered,
Mm-hmm.
it kind of leads to a pretty interesting final thought, doesn't it?
Go on.
Well, given that our understanding of evolutionary relationships is always getting better, with new tools like DNA sequencing and stuff,
Mm-hmm. Constantly refining the picture.
how might our current system of biological classification, this hierarchy we've been discussing, how might it continue to evolve? Could it even, fundamentally change in the future?
Ah, that's a great question to ponder. It really highlights that science isn't static, is it? It's a dynamic process. As our knowledge deepens, as new evidence comes to light, especially about those deep evolutionary connections,
Yeah.
our methods for organizing that knowledge, our classification systems, they will undoubtedly continue to be refined, reshaped, maybe even challenged. It's definitely an ongoing journey of discovery.